Today's lesson is the Spanish tradition of merienda. Hi, I'm Mike.
And I'm Candice.
And we should probably be going by our Spanish names today, shouldn't we? I'm Miguel.
I'm Candida.
Ooh, excellent. Do you speak Spanish?
Not at all.
I don't speak Spanish, but I eat Spanish. So this article is right up my alley. Merienda is something I've never really experienced before. I'm kind of learning about it now. I think a lot of people, when they think of Spanish food, they probably think of another tradition there, tapas, right? That kind of late evening meal of small plates that people enjoy in the evening hours with some wine or some beer. But merienda is kind of a mid-afternoon version of that, a light meal you might have as a snack in the mid-afternoon. Sounds good, though.
Yeah, very good. And, you know, when I think about the Spanish, I really think about people who know how to enjoy life.
Yes.
You know, they eat well, they sleep when they're tired,
Right.
you know, when
they have
it's too hot.
siestas. That's right.
That's right. You know, and they just enjoy life. They don't live to work.
That's exactly right. They work to live. They don't live to work. And when you think of life in Spain, people do think of these interesting traditions that they have, which often do revolve around meals, enjoyment, pleasure in other people's company, and stuff like that. So let's find out all about the Spanish tradition of merienda. And hopefully we're going to be able to taste some of these snacks. My fingers are crossed, but I'm not that hopeful. The Spanish tradition of merienda. Spanish culture is all about living life to the fullest. Thus, socializing and eating are popular activities in Spain. Meals are shared with laughing, feasting friends and family. A prime example of this kind of meal is merienda, a light meal typically enjoyed in the afternoon.
大家好，第一部分我们看到动词 socialize。指进行社交活动、与人交往或是使社会化。举例来说 ，Betty socialized with her classmates on the weekend. Betty 周末与同学进行社交活动。也可以说 Ken often socializes with his colleagues after work. Ken 下班后常与同事交际往来。另外补充这个字的形容词 social, S-O-C-I-A-L, social, 指社交的或是交际的。例如 At this company, we encourage our workers to be social with one another. 在这间公司，我们鼓励员工彼此社交交流。或者 There is no need to wear anything formal to the social event. 没有必要穿着正式服装出席这个交际活动。接着我们看到单字 prime， 这个字是形容词，指最典型的、最具代表性的或是主要的、最好的。像是Stacy's children say that she is a prime example of what a great mother should be. Stacy 的孩子们说她是伟大母亲应有的最佳典范。或是 The campsite was a prime location for watching wildlife. 这个营地是观察野生动物的主要地点。另外补充这个字的形容词 primary, P-R-I-M-A-R-Y, primary, 表示主要的或是首要的。举例来说Carol's primary goal is to get a good job. Carol 主要的目标是找到份好工作。也可以说 Poor diet and lack of exercise are the primary causes of obesity. 饮食不当和缺乏运动是肥胖的首要原因。
All right, we are back. So let's get into our article and find out all about merienda and how it's a very important part of Spanish culture. So the first sentence reads, Spanish culture is all about living life to the fullest. Absolutely, as we mentioned in the introduction. People there work to live, they don't live to work. In other words, they work so they have money to enjoy the rest of their lives. Their lives don't revolve around their jobs, their office, their career. They're living life to the fullest. Now, some people who are workaholics might say, well, I'm living my life to the fullest. I work 60 hours a week. But other people might say, well, that's kind of hard to live your life to the fullest if you're in the office all the time. So if you have time for friends, families, hobbies, parties, holidays, weekend activities, doing other stuff rather than just working to make money and please your boss, they might say in that case you're living life to the fullest. You're getting the most out of life and you're not just turning yourself into a worker bee or something like that. So, how do they do that kind of thing, live life to the fullest?
Yeah, living life to the fullest obviously has different interpretations depending on which culture you're from. So I guess in America, work is very important. In Taiwan, work is very important. But I think balance is very important. And in Spain or other Latin countries, they really enjoy socializing. The next line goes on to say, thus, socializing and eating are popular activities in Spain. And so, we socialize. Sometimes we have a very tight schedule. So Monday to Friday, we have to go to work. We work from 9 to 5. But as you already mentioned, the pace of life is a lot more comfortable, maybe a little bit more people-friendly, a little bit more relaxed in Spain. And so socializing often happens in the evenings because the day is a little bit longer. They will have supper maybe at 9 or 10. So they take every opportunity to get together with friends and family and just enjoy the moment. And they often get together with friends and family while enjoying a meal.
That's exactly right. As it says, meals are shared with laughing, feasting, friends, and family. So we're not talking about sitting by yourself in a fast food restaurant, looking at your phone as you swallow a hamburger as fast as you can. No, absolutely not. We're talking about 1, 2, 3-hour meals, enjoying it with other people, laughing, telling jokes, having a really good time as you feast with friends and family. We could say eat or dine with friends and family, but the idea of a feast is maybe large amounts of food, definitely, but also large amounts of pleasure and enjoyment and happiness and just, enjoying the meal as much as you enjoy the people you are sharing the meal with. That kind of total idea of sharing a meal with good friends, but also having good food. And a prime example of this kind of meal is merienda, a light meal typically enjoyed in the afternoon. Yeah, it's described there as a prime example of something.
Yeah, that's a specific example of this kind of celebratory, festive spirit that is the merienda. Or sometimes in some countries we also think of it as afternoon tea, which is enjoyed in Spain and also in many of the former Spanish colonies, like, for example, Argentina or Mexico.
Absolutely. A prime example, something that is prime, is kind of like a perfect example, a top example, a really good example. So, we could say the night markets of Taipei are a prime example of how Taiwanese people love to go outside in crowds and eat interesting foods. It's a really good example of that. You can find other ones, but if I want to give you one of the best, simplest, easiest, there you go. That's a prime example. Merienda sounds really good. Let's find out more about it and how it fits into daily life in Spain and other parts of the Spanish-speaking world in our next paragraph. Let's listen to that now. The Spanish word merienda comes from the Latin word merenda, meaning to earn, to deserve. Historically, merienda was served as a food ration to Roman soldiers in ancient times to sustain them in their vigorous physical activities. Eventually, the habit of snacking in the afternoon made its way to Spanish culture and became an integral part of daily life. In Spain, lunch is normally served between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m., while dinner is served as late as 9 p.m. That leaves many hours between lunch and dinner. So just as people start to feel weary and yawns set in, merienda is served from around 4 p.m. to 6 p.m.
第二部分我们看到形容词 vigorous， 表示剧烈的、耗费大量体力的或是精力充沛的。例如 Vicky is still ill, so she's not ready for vigorous exercise yet. Vicky 仍在生病中，所以她还没准备好进行剧烈运动。或是 It took Hank vigorous effort to lift the piano onto the back of the truck. Hank 费了很大力气才把钢琴抬到卡车后。另外补充这个字的名词 vigor, V-I-G-O-R, vigor, 指活力或是精力。 像是 The band performed with great vigor at their final concert. 这个乐队在他们的最后一场音乐会上表现得非常有活力。或者 The passionate presenter delivered his speech with great vigor. 热情洋溢的演讲者发表了一场充满活力的演讲。最后我们看到单字 weary， 这个字是形容词，表示疲倦的或是疲惫的。我们可以说 Brenda was weary after her long day of work. 漫长的一天工作下来 Brenda 累了。或是 The weary public are fed up with the pandemic and wish they could get back to normal. 疲惫不堪的大众已经受够了疫情，希望自己能够回归正常。
All right, so merienda. We kind of know what it is. We have a bit of an idea of where it comes from, but what about that word, merienda? So then in the next sentence, we learn the Spanish word merienda comes from the Latin word merenda, meaning to earn, to deserve. Okay, so this is a little bit of the history of this word. It comes from Latin, as does Spanish, right? Spanish, Italian, French, Portuguese. We call these the Romantic languages, not because they're about love, but because they come from Rome. They're based on the Latin language from long ago. And that word merenda, the Latin word, means to earn or to deserve. So if someone gives you something for hard work that you've done, if they say, if you do this job, I will pay you or I will give you a special treat at the end, that is your merenda. You have merended your little gift or whatever you are being given.
Yes, well, we usually deserve something because we've worked for it, we've earned it, or because we've done something that we should maybe get repaid for or be rewarded for. So we could say that the hard-working student deserved the scholarship. So in that case, we're saying that the scholarship is the hard-working student's reward for being so hard-working. Or we could say the amazing athlete, for example, deserved to win the gold for his performance at the Olympics.
Absolutely, yeah. Their hard work should pay off in some way, so they deserve that thing, that reward, that prize, that gift. Now, what about the Romans? Did they have a meal like this? Well, yeah, sort of. It says historically, merienda was served as a food ration to Roman soldiers in ancient times to sustain them in their vigorous physical activities. Rome, of course, was a nation founded on a culture founded on war and conquering other lands. So the soldiers, I think every male citizen had to serve in the army for around 10 years. And so they would get this food ration. Merenda served as, or it acted as, it took the role as a food ration for soldiers. A ration is basically your amount of something large. If we have a large amount of food, everyone gets an equal share. That is your ration. We can also talk about the food that you might find in an emergency situation, those emergency rations. That's an amount of food, and if we divide it by 8 people, we can all eat this food for 1 week, as long as we eat our ration, our equal shared amount of a larger thing that we have. And this is, of course, the food that they got in ancient times to sustain them in their vigorous physical activities. Soldiers, I don't think it's any secret, work hard, so they need to be sustained. To sustain something is to kind of keep it in good condition, to keep it up, to keep it going, to keep it working well, to not sort of let it fall into neglect or get old or worn or break down or something like that. By putting oil in your car and getting it checked every year or so, you are sustaining its good performance. And Roman soldiers, of course, worked hard as they did a lot of vigorous physical activities.
Yeah, and of course, they would have limited amounts of food, so everybody could only get a very specific portion of food for every meal. So that was their ration. So they had to work sparingly with food. And as you said, in an emergency situation, often we will ration the food. We will make portions to make the food last and make sure that everybody gets their fair share of the food. And of course, Roman soldiers were always at war. They had to march really far. They had to do really vigorous physical activity. They had to engage engage in sword fights. So they needed to have a regular meal, even if it wasn't always a very large meal. They needed to have a regular meal to keep up their energy in order to, of course, fight the enemy and to gain glory for Rome.
That's right. And vigorous physical activities. Vigorous means using a lot of energy. If you're doing something vigorous, you're moving a lot, you're burning up a lot of calories, using a lot of energy, getting yourself tired. Going to the gym is vigorous. Sitting at home and watching TV is not very vigorous. You're not using a lot of energy or burning calories. And of course, we do vigorous activities, and these are physical activities generally. If you're talking about physical, you're talking about of the body, of the muscles, of the bones. Going to the gym is physical exercise. Studying a new language or playing chess or something, that would be mental, right? So mental is of the mind, physical is of the body. And as anyone knows, if you go out and work all day in the hot sun and carry things and move things and dig things and walk long distances, your body will be burning up a lot of calories. That is definitely physical activity that Romans were doing all over the empire back in those days. Eventually, the habit of snacking in the afternoon made its way to Spanish culture and became an integral part of daily life. Rome, of course, controlled much of Spain. In fact, I think the Emperor Hadrian, who was one of the most important Roman emperors, was born in Spain before he became the emperor there in Rome. So, of course, Roman culture made its way to Spanish culture. It traveled, it was taken there, it was transported over time. If something makes its way to a place, it starts in another place. But as I said, over time and over cultural exchange, it ends up going to another place. And it became an important or an integral part of daily life, a very important part of daily life for Romans all over the empire. And then in Spain, moving more into the modern time, it says lunch is normally served between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. That's quite late for most of us, but that's typical in Spain, while dinner is served as late as 9 p.m. So yeah, everything in Spain is kind of shifted over a couple of hours from what we might expect.
Yeah, I think it's also to do with the weather, especially in summer. The hottest part of the day is around noon. So people try to avoid being outside or being exposed to the sun at the hottest time of day. So they do tend to shift everything a little later to when it's a little cooler. And also, as you say, they start the day later to accommodate the late dinner at 9 o'clock. So in modern times, they would need a bit of a snack. Back in the day, in Roman times, they also needed a snack. And of course, today, they still enjoy the snack. And of course, the snack or the afternoon tea is referred to as merienda. And so that fills the gap just as people are starting to get weary and the yawns are setting in. So the sentence goes, that leaves many hours between lunch and dinner. So just as people start to feel weary and yawns set in, merienda is served from around 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. So lunch is between 2 and 3 p.m. and then dinner is at 9, and then merienda would be from 4 to 6 p.m. And now remember, if we go back to the first part, merienda is only a light meal. It's not what is considered a main meal or an entree.
Kind of like tea, as you said.
Yes, and of course, because the day is so long, people do tend to need some food to give them a boost to lift their energy levels. So when you get weary, you get tired, maybe you physically or mentally tired, you lose energy. Literally, the word weary means to wear out, maybe from working. For example, all the weary traveler wanted to do after 24 hours of airports was to eat and rest. So when you're weary, you're really tired. And then, of course, when you're tired, you start yawning. So you can yawn and the yawns will set in. So, of course, we've all yawned and we know how contagious a yawn is. So when we're tired or fatigued or even bored, we would start yawning. And so we open our mouths really wide to take in more oxygen. And often we do that when we wake up or just before we are about to sleep. We'll yawn and we'll stretch. So while people don't necessarily maybe do a lot of stretching, they do feel tired and they need a snack to pick them up at 4 o'clock.
I have no idea
what
you're talking about there. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, people do yawn when they're tired, when they're bored, and at other times possibly too, even to clear their ears, right? When you're on an airplane, you might yawn sort of. And we can also use that as a verb. It's both a verb and a noun. Your yawns are making me want to yawn, right? So it's the same thing. So there you go. Merienda is served right around that time when your energy starts to dip in the afternoon. All right, we're going to take a break here. We got the third part to check out, so let's listen to it and then we'll be back. Merienda is an opportunity to meet with friends, talk business, or simply people watch. The practice of merienda creates happiness and re-energizes people so that they can then patiently wait until dinner to eat again. Okay, so merienda, it's a great time to have a little snack with your friends in the afternoon, get a little energy pick-me-up. And it says there also, merienda is an opportunity to meet with friends, talk business, or simply people watch. Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of people might still be at work, so this might be a good way to have a quick business meeting with some of your colleagues while also enjoying a snack and some social time. Or you can go out, you're outside, you're sitting in an outdoor cafe, and that's a great place to do one of my favorite things, people watch. Just sort of sit there and watch the world go by and look at the interesting people, enjoy being outside and enjoy being in public where, you know, lots of interesting things might be happening around you.
Yeah, I always enjoy watching documentaries about animals in their natural habitat. And so I like watching people, you know, some people are colorful, some people are more outgoing than others. You know, it's nice to see how people respond to each other. Or maybe, you know, it's good to look at attractive people, or maybe we're interested in fashion and we can see what people are wearing. So if you're interested in people, that's the perfect opportunity to watch them in their natural habitat.
There you go. And as we finish the article, it says the practice of merienda creates happiness and re-energizes people so that they can patiently wait until dinner to eat again, which will be in a few more hours. When we talk about here practice, notice it's not a verb. We're not practicing the violin. It's a practice. This is kind of like a cultural tradition, something that people in that culture, that country, they do that might be unique and interesting and different from other parts of the world. So this tradition, this custom of merienda creates happiness and re-energizes people, gives them energy again with a few drinks, or maybe have a coffee with your little meal so that you can go back to work and wait until 9 p.m. when it's dinner time. Sounds good to me. All right, guys, let's go and listen to our Chinese teacher now while we enjoy a few little light snacks.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第二部分的第二句写到，在历史上 merienda 在古代被用作罗马士兵的口粮，以维持他们剧烈的体能活动。好，那文中出现了 sustain 和 vigorous 这两个单字，我们要分别补充它们的字根。首先要介绍的是 tain 这个字根啊，它有 hold 或者是 keep 的意思，表示保留、持有、维持。那么在 sustain 这个字当中，它的字首 sus 表示在下方， tain 表示维持。同学们可以试着联想，在下方维持着、支撑着，这就好像是当后盾一样嘛。那么 sustain 它就有维持、支撑、供养的意思。我们顺便补充其他有相同字根的单字。第一个是 obtain， 它的字首 ob 是用来强调语气。tain 表示持有，那么合在一起 obtain 就是表达取得、获得的意思。那第二个补充的是 maintain， 它的字首 main 表示守， tain 表示维持。那同学们可以试着想，用手来做维持保养的工作，那么 maintain 当动词，它就可以指保养维修，也有这种维持保持的意思。第三个是 detain， 它的字首 de 表示离开， tain 表示保留。你把要离开的人事物强留下来，应该可以联想到 detain 它有拘留、扣押的意思吧。 好，我们接着要介绍的是这个 VIV 或者是 VIT 或者是 VIG。好，这一类字根呢有生命啊、活力的意思，像 vigor VIGOR 这个字。它的字根 VIG 表示活力，那么 OR 是名词字尾 vigor 它当名词就表示活力、体力或是精力。我们现在在后面加上形容词字尾 OUS 构成 vigorous， 那就可以用来形容是精力充沛的，也可以形容体育活动它可能是剧烈的啊，耗费大量体力的。顺便补充2个这一类字根的单字哦。第一个是 revive REVIVE，它的字首 RE 表示再度再次 VIVE 表示生命，那么合在一起 revive 就表示苏醒复苏的意思。那么第二个补充的是 vital， 它的字根 VIT 有生命的意思， AL 是形容词字尾，那么 vital 就可以形容生命的或是充满活力的，像 vital sign 是指生命迹象。好，那同学们也可以想啦，跟生命有关，那就是不可或缺非常重要的，所以 vital 也可以用来形容极其重要必不可缺的。我们接着在 vital 的前面加上字首 RE 表示再度再次，然后在 vital 的后面加上动词字尾 IZE 就可以构成 revitalize 这个动词了，那就表示使什么恢复生气、恢复精神，或是使什么复兴振兴的意思。好，以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾今天的单字吧。
Feast. The hungry cat feasted on the uncooked fish. Prime. The hotel is a prime representative of creative architecture. Deserve. Because of the judge's error, it was decided that the prisoner deserved a new trial. Sustain. Even the new video game could not sustain the young child's interest. Physical. You will need to have a healthy diet in order to achieve top physical performance. Yawn. The audience's yawns suggested that the movie was a little boring. Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Mike.
I'm Candice.
See you next time.